Who's doing the intro?
You.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable. I'm Mike Marshall. I'm one of the co-founders of the Liberty First Foundation. To my immediate right, you will see Michael Vaz Vasquez, dragon of every tier of New York, the feared, how can I say, no punch pulled, real journalist in New York, one of the few true journalists still left. To my furthest right, Frank, the Range Report Johnson, DEI hire. And our alternative voice, Jan Rains. And we're also glad to have Dal Graham from Grim Liberty join us as well.
Thank you very much.
People should ask why.
Another very slow news week, don't you think?
Well, we should start off with our DEI hire, Frank, because there's a reason why we had to hire him.
Well, yeah, it wasn't for my trauma, personality, or intellect. It was for my.
Go ahead, admit it. It's the moon tan. It's the moon tan.
Yeah, it's my melanin content. I have more melanin than the average white guy. It's the combination of Sicilian and Native American that kind of gives me this really nice blend. I'm the mochaccino of white guys
with a baby face.
Yeah, and I'm the grande. I'm the grande because I'm like extra large. Oh, boys and girls, I'll tell you, it's how many times do I have to say on the show that you can't write it if you wanted to?
No, you can't. No matter how can't make this shit up.
Yeah, no matter how crazy you think it's going to be, no matter how ridiculous you think it's going to be, the realities that we are facing week by week by week are more inventive, let's say, than what the best screenwriters could possibly write for movies.
Well,
you cannot imagine.
Modern day screenwriters can't write. I mean, you have seen Madam Web, or what was it, The Acolyte? I mean,
well, even the screenwriters of yesteryear who wrote such amazing classics that adorned our silver screens across the world could not come up with what we're seeing today.
I think Tom Clancy's having an aneurysm and writer's cramp at this point.
But it's
Rod Serling would have a hard time coming up with the Twilight Zone that we are currently living in.
But honestly, it's not that surprising. I mean, the way it's happening is a surprise. What happened isn't. We knew that Joe Biden was mentally deficient. We saw that. We knew that. We had strong belief that Joe Biden wouldn't be the nominee for 2024. That's happening. If they have to pick someone, they had to pick Kamala because money, color of skin, sex. She was the DEI hire. She's fulfilling that role. So we're seeing that play out. And they're rewriting history about Kamala to
literally
every failure she's ever had. Nope, didn't happen, didn't exist, don't believe it. Yeah, but you reported it. Axios, CNN, MSNBC. We have the articles and the videos where you guys literally told us these things. Oh yeah, but that was just wrong.
Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying ears. Don't believe.
They are literally rewriting history. She was never the border czar. She is never put in charge of the border. She never incarcerated
prisoners. She never kept a man who's on death row in jail.
She never tampered with evidence, never withheld evidence.
Well, the left is using a lot of semantics for the border czar thing because there is no legitimate office of the border czar. It's just part of the vernacular. It's just it's another thing. There's no official title thereof anywhere. And whenever, I think the first American czar he had was the drug czar. That was a media concocted thing. Well, we don't have, it's not a legitimate office. So what do we call them? Well, we'll call them a czar, which is the Russian interpretation of the word Caesar. But the construct is completely man-made. So, and there's nothing in our laws that has that office there. That's just, this is something that, from the days of Nancy Reagan, where she was, tapped to be our anti-drug crusader. And then you go further and you have your Barbara Bush was education, and the other Barbara Bush was about the library and but there's no office. The media labels it, and now they figure, well, we created the label, we could take it back whenever we're told to.
Yeah, but
we have Sleepy saying
Biden actually said that Kamala Harris was put in charge of the border crisis at the southern border.
Well,
and that he was going to name her the border czar.
Yeah, and to be
exact,
exact,
he literally said she was in charge of it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, unless the words czar came out of Biden's mouth directly in that sentence,
he said it. Wait a minute, he said it. So did Axios, CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, NBC News, and I can tell you the exact day. You can go to March 24th, 2021, and look at the coverage that day. That was the day that Biden sat in and had all the news media there as he appointed her, put her in charge of the southern border to deal with immigration. That was what her responsibility was. Immigration and the southern border, to put it under control. In addition to that, we have had multiple articles since that time in April and in June and in July of 2021, where each of those news organizations directly quoted her as a border czar. So, and I know because I did a video about it, and I did the research, and I have the links to many of these articles. Every international news media said it. For them to then turn around to the American people and say, well, that's not true, it never happened, is them trying to, you can call it gaslighting, revisioning. What it is manipulation.
I believe he even uses the title in his executive order. The executive order that he's giving her the presidential authority to monitor and work on the border uses the term border czar within his executive order. So it's there. It's official. The title is official. Now, I would say for all the reporting out there, you in the audience have a job. If you come across a source of anything media, go to archive.today. Archive it. Because if they're going to go back and they're going to try to wipe everything that they can in order to be able to get rid of evidence, you need to be able to put it somewhere where you're going to be able to access it again. Archive.today is great. It's a great place.
There's also been reported that there's a site, which, Bosch, you probably know this site, that rates every senator and congressperson.
It's called GovTrack, GovTrack.
They had her on there listed like the lowest of the lowest because of her liberalism, and they've erased that now too.
Not lowest, but furthest left. She was and 2019, Kamala Harris was the most progressive member of Congress, the Senate. Absolutely, hands down. No one was further to the left than her. And now, only now, within this week, 2 days ago, GovTrack went back and erased that information. They literally revisioned it real time. It's kind of like what they did with the Acolyte and with Plagueis. They rewrote it. They literally rewrote it in front of people's faces to say, oh, no, but that wasn't correct. No, that was correct. And until today, it was true because it was always true. This is how they fortify the 2024 election. They change everything and tell you, no, you just don't remember it correctly. And they're changing the facts, assuming that we will not check.
So March 24th, 2021.
Yep.
Is when Biden named her border czar. Okay. This article from the AP, let me get to it real quick, verifies that. Okay, and this was put out March 24th, 2021. Biden taps VP Harris to lead response to border challenges. President Joe Biden has tapped Vice President Kamala Harris to lead the White House effort to tackle migration challenge at the U.S. southern border and work with Central American nations to address the root causes of the problem. Okay, this isn't something we're making up. This is, and they are trying to literally whitewash it and brush it under the carpet. Voice of America. Harris was never border czar, experts say, despite. No, Kamala Harris wasn't put, USA Today. No, Kamala Harris wasn't put in charge of the U.S. border. Okay. USA did a fact check, says false.
Right. This was part of what I was saying before. Because there is no official office anywhere within the government that says border czar, they have an out in being able to say, no, she's not. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what we've seen, what we've heard, or anything, because we don't have an official office of border czar. They're always going to say the security of the border comes back and has always been in the wheelhouse of the Department of Homeland Security under Immigration and Naturalization. The fact that they call her the border czar is not, and they're not going to say that that's a Biden thing. They're going to say that that is a Republican construct.
They did. Yeah, that's what they call it.
Right. It's a Republican construct because there really is no border czar. So
that's not the important thing.
No, but I know we know that. But the media is going to try and paint this picture for everybody that is the fact of the matter, because they use semantics against people, and people who aren't going to go back and look up the 1,400 articles and the one statement that she made regarding the border, don't come. That's what they're gonna base their knowledge on, because the people aren't going to go back and do the research.
That's what
they're going to take for granted what the media says, and like lockstep people, they're just going to come out and swallow it and say, no, the media says she was never border czar, so she was never border czar. It doesn't matter. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
What's the low information voters? They're targeting low information voters. So, and that's what they're preying on. No one ever, don't look. Don't put the extra 5 minutes it takes in there. And by the way, it's going to actually now take you 15 or more, because literally, if you go in and you start searching for things about Kamala Harris, I noticed this 2 days ago when I was doing a video about her.
Yeah.
Google has changed the algorithm and they have been suppressing older news about Kamala Harris. Literally, I had to go back to, I've been doing videos about Kamala Harris and covering her since 2018, when she was talking about running for, about 2018, when she was talking about running for 2020 along with everyone else. And so I was doing research on her then. I had to go to my old videos from 5-6 years ago to pull up some of the links that I was using in those videos, because Google has hidden those very same articles while she was a senator, hiding those and making it's like you have to go to page like 6 or 7 in a Google search to find it if you have the right keywords. They're burying everything about this woman to try and push the narrative. It's really important.
And the voter that they're trying to influence with this latest stream of misinformation is the same voters that Harris herself called stupid.
Yeah.
She called these people stupid, and now they're turning the media to try and convince those stupid people, that they're smart and that they are informed and that Harris is their person. This is that one little block of voters that they can always rely on, where they plant one seed or another and they can grow any kind of tree that they want. And these are the idiots that run out there into, every, center of every park and burn statues and, do all the damage. That's the people that they're trying to influence. And hopefully it spreads out to where people actually believe it.
It's really insane, and it's really so insultingly. It's an insult to the American people. It's also the Democrats are trying to say that they want to preserve democracy, and yet look at the authoritarian tactics that they are using against the American people. Look at how they are trying. Monday? No, go back to Sunday. This week, Sunday. You could try and find news on Kamala Harris, and no one cared about her. Up until we get that letter, which was suspicious all on its own. But up until we get the letter, if we go back a week ago, 2 weeks ago, no one cared about Kamala Harris. None of the Democrats liked her. Again, to remind people, because many people will forget, and I've done the videos on this, in 2019, December 2019, Kamala Harris was at 5%. 95% of Democrats voting, getting prepared to vote for the primaries, rejected her. She dropped out of the race with no money and no support 2 months before the first primary because no one wanted her. The only reason why she's in, and I know there's going to be someone who's going to go, oh my God, you can't say this. She's a DEI hire, diversity, equity, inclusion. She was put into the vice presidency because of the color of her skin, because she's a woman, and that was it, to garner those votes. Does she have the qualification to be president? Of course. So does everyone on this panel. 100 million people have the qualifications to be president. That's just being the right age and being an American citizen, period.
And we're going to get more into that later.
Yeah. But so the question isn't, is she the most qualified person? See, again, they're playing games. She's qualified. Everyone, again, 100 million people in America are qualified. Is she the most qualified? The answer to that is no. And it's not me saying that. Democrats said that. And the only reason why she got the job is because she's a DEI hire. By definition, she's DEI hire. She's not worthy. And, they were like, oh, but you're sexist, racist for saying that. No, that's the truth. You just don't like it.
Well, and I found it interesting too. I had a couple of friends reach out to me when she got together with all those women, the first speech that she did. And the first thing that was said to me was, well, I'm a little bit worried. And I came back and I said, why? And they said, well, she spoke so eloquent tonight. And I came back and I said, because somebody wrote the speech for her. That's not her. Go back and look at any and every video where she talks on her own. It's nothing but word salads.
Yeah, talks off the cuff. And she's terrible at it.
Yeah, and then they came back and said, well, she raised $81 million.
No, she didn't.
And I said, give it a couple of days. And today, or last night, it came out that the dude that they're saying is equivalent to Soros donated all this money to Act Blue in the name of all the elderly people and people that you can't verify or people that say, no, I never donated. And that's where the money came from.
Yeah, remember Disney?
Getting back to the border.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, right here is, this is from the White House. Okay, 2:14 p.m. Okay, remarks by President Biden and Vice President Harris in meeting on immigration. Well, folks, today I have two announcements to make. One is we've got ourselves a secretary. Xavier, welcome. Secretary Becerra, thank you, Mr. President. The President, thanks. I've been willing to do this, and I really appreciate it. Okay, and then it goes on. But the Vice President and I, and all of us here, have been working very hard to pass the legislation that is going to beat this virus, blah, blah, blah. In addition, that's about 5 other major things that she's handling. But I've asked her, the Vice President, today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help are going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. And you know, back when I was vice president, I got a similar assignment. But one of the things we did was made sure that we got bipartisan agreement with Democrats and Republicans to provide over $700 million to the countries in the Northern Triangle to determine the best way to keep people from coming is to keep them from wanting to leave. Okay, so right there, he literally says that she's in charge of this.
Yeah, it's not a question. It's a fact. They're lying. But here's the thing. Is anyone surprised that they're lying to us, considering they lied literally every day up until 3 weeks ago to the American people's face, saying Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. He's a mental giant. And look at what we saw. They said, oh, there's no need for a primary because he's our guy and we're going to stand behind him all the way to November. Look at what they did. They are literally rewriting everything they've said. It is, the propaganda is so, I was in the Soviet Union in 91. I never saw so much propaganda so blatant before. This is insane. And they're doing it in front of our faces. And yet they have people going, vote blue, no matter who. And I can't imagine how people could say that, because it is destroying America. They lied to our faces. And by the way, Kamala Harris is part of the cabal that lied to our faces. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Kamala Harris, and I'd say all of the Washington press corps all knew. And they knew things like, oh, Joe Biden only works 6 hours a day. He's only good from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's worse than bankers' hours.
Yeah, those are bankers' hours, not even bankers' hours. And they knew that he couldn't be out and have a speech more than 90 minutes, that he couldn't hold an idea all the way through and be able to communicate this. They have been protecting him for years. They are complicit in this, each and every single one of them. And it's worse than I've been talking about. Well, they're going to fortify the 2024 election. This is even worse than that. This is straight up election interference. It is election manipulation of the public. This is a desperate grasp of power for the sake of political ideology and partisanship. There is no other way to explain this. And if people are going to vote straight down the line partisan just because they're part of that party without taking into account how you have been lied to, please, I don't know what's wrong with you. Sorry, this thing pisses me off. It really does.
Yeah. Well, here's what really gets me. This is supposed to be the party that is saving democracy. Yet there is not a single person Democrat, Republican, or Independent, that voted for Kamala Harris to be the presidential nominee.
Not one. Not one. And
Not a single person.
nope. And they're talking about this is the democratic process. This is democracy in action. You didn't let
No,
anyone-
what they're trying to say, and this is what I've been seeing over X, when Republicans point this out, and when, or not even Republicans, when people point this out, what I see over X is the Democrat pundits. Well, yeah, I did select her. I selected her when I chose Biden because it was a Biden-Harris ticket. And I knew, no, you did not.
No,
Because number one, it was assumed that it was going to be a Biden-Harris ticket, but it was not, in fact, a Biden-Harris ticket yet. Because Biden, at the DNC, could have easily chose somebody else to be his vice presidential running mate.
well, first, he wasn't the nominee yet. You
Right.
got to go to the DNC first.
Joanna Patterson has a question. She wanted to know if we could help her archive a source. Yeah, Joanna, the way you do that is by going to this page. I'm going to share it here in the stream real quick. So anybody that wants to archive, did you guys get it? There you go. This is archive.today. If you type it into your URL bar, it'll take you right there. And you'll have to go through like a Cloudflare check. What you want to do is your source, whatever that full web address is, you put it into the red bar that's at the top here, and then click save. What it will do is it will encode the entire website and the article and make a screen capture of it, and then it sources itself on the archive server. It works similarly to the Wayback Machine, but what's better about it is it's completely automatic and no human ever touches it, other than people inputting into it. So it can be updated, but it continues to keep the original iterations of the website, which is great for going over a period of time and looking at how many times people have resaved the same article. And you can go back to the original one. You can see all the subsequent versions with corrections, if there are any, or alterations. It's a fantastic tool. And then all you have to do is it will generate a archive URL that is much shorter, and you can keep that in a library of your own if you want. But this way, it helps with two things. One, it keeps an original snapshot of whatever you put in at the time. And two, it gets around paywalls. So if you have New York Times articles, if you have Associated Press articles that are locked behind a paywall, because this does it encodes the entire source of the web page itself, the paywalls aren't there. Now, it won't do video, but it will do tweets. It's an amazing tool. It's great stuff. And then the blue bar is what you can use to search subjects, and it will bring up all the archives of the sources that have been saved in there. It's a great tool. Shout out to Styx Hexenhammer for pointing me to this, because it's a invaluable tool for research.
All right.
Okay.
So where we left off is that we are seeing a lot of propaganda. We're seeing a process that is being perpetrated by the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, against the American people. A bunch of elites are making decisions and saying, hey, it's great for you. And they're trying to say, well, you know, as I think you were saying, Mike, that when people, they're telling voters, the DNC rank and file, well, you voted for Biden. And of course, you know, Kamala's on that ticket with him, which is a lie, because Joe Biden isn't the nominee until August. And he can pick anyone he wants as his vice president, theoretically, in August. Now that he's no longer the nominee because he removed himself, it's an open forum. Anyone can be selected, and they don't have a process to do that because they've never tried to before. So they're now using the media to try and say, it's always been Kamala. You just don't remember. It's kind of like Bidenomics. The economy's great. You just don't understand. Kamala's the nominee. You just don't understand. No, she never was.
No,
This is
not
usurping
until
people. But
she did this.
oh yeah, she wasn't even a candidate. That's right. She wasn't even a good point, Mike. She wasn't even a candidate for the presidency. It wasn't even an option.
Until she did that, she could not be the candidate for the presidency. And every primary pretty much is over with.
So the people never could have ever had the chance
To vote for her.
it's
But democracy.
yeah, democracy. Ooh. And the problem is, and the way they're trying to protect themselves, which I really find sick about it, is, but she's a black woman. You can't say things about her because that's sexist and racist. No, these are facts. We're talking about the facts. And you don't like those facts. That's fine. You don't have to like it, but they're still the facts. And that doesn't make me racist or sexist or an ist or a phobe, because I'm telling you about the facts that are being used to manipulate you. And people, but yet I'm still seeing all these people on all kinds of social media saying, no, but you're being an ist and a phobe. It's like, but nothing I'm saying is untrue. You may not like it, but I don't care about your feelings. I don't care. I have my own feelings. Thank you very much.
Well, are you guys hearing the chatter about Buttigieg?
Oh, butt giggity? Yeah, they're talking about
What?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
talking about him being
They're
vice
talking
president.
another DEI hire.
No, it won't be. It won't be a gig.
That's actually probably one of the things that Obama's negotiated for their endorsement is they get to choose who the VP candidate is.
I wouldn't be surprised by that, but I don't think it's going to be Buttigieg. Buttigieg, the reason why they would say Buttigieg is the same reason why they picked Kamala. It's the DEI hire. He's gay. That's the reason. So they would have the black woman and gay votes. That's the way they think of it. So as long as I put up a picture of whatever category it is, because you're no longer human beings, you're no longer individuals with agency, you're a category. And as long as I put something up that says, this is your category, I get your vote. That's the way the Democratic Party thinks. You're not human beings. You're just categories. And so they have the woman category, the black category, even though Kamala isn't black, or rather, let me be clear. She's black. She's not an African-American. There is a difference. And now Buttigieg would bring in the gay vote. And they're like, see, we get all of the minorities. No, that's just, that's stupid. And if minorities are going because of that reasoning, they're out of their mind. And I'll say it again. No, Kamala Harris is, yes, she's black. No, she's not African-American. There is a very big difference.
Be right back.
Yep. So,
well, they're not going to get booty juice in there, because he's qualified or anything. What they want to do is they're looking for insulation. Is all it is. It's the only reason that they're going to put any of these people into that category is because if they just go get Mark Kelly to sit in that place, Mark Kelly doesn't bring a shield with him. He doesn't bring in a shield. He's a white guy. He's a straight white guy. You can attack him all you want and nobody can say anything. But if you put another DEI into that category, you're putting another layer of victimology onto the ticket that can't be criticized without being counter criticized for it.
I understand that reasoning, but I don't think it's going to work. You'll see it's going to be J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, because like Mark Kelly, he's a governor So it's someone who actually has leadership capabilities because Kamala doesn't. But the bigger thing is J.B. Pritzker is a billionaire. They need money, which is why they have Kamala on the ticket, because they'd have to give back, refund all the money if she wasn't on the ticket, because that's how they raised the money with her and Biden. So one of them have to be on the ticket. So that's why they have Kamala. And the bonus is that she's a woman and she's black. Pritzker gives them all the money they need to make it to the end. And he's a governor, so he's a leader. And they'll live with the fact that he's white. And, well, he's not really white. He's kind of white.
He's Frank White. Right, mulatto brother?
I don't think he's Frank White. He's
No.
no. But let's also be completely honest about Pritzker. It's an optics problem with Pritzker.
Really? What's that?
Besides Illinois being corrupt, what?
No, visually. There's an optics problem with him. He's morbidly obese.
So, body shaming. Don't body shame him.
No, it's not. Listen, I'm not talking about body shaming. I'm a fat bastard myself too. All right, I'm 60 pounds overweight. You know,
Yeah.
I got no problem at all talking about being fat. And that also means I ain't got no problem about talking about anybody else being fat.
No,
70% of Americans are too goddamn fat.
Yeah.
We are no longer a healthy people. We are no longer a healthy people. For all the time that we all spend going to gyms and doing diets and all the rest of that crap, we eat way too much processed food. We are not healthy. We don't have healthy lifestyles. We're all too goddamn fat. I'm sorry that that's a fact that people can't get used to, but we're all fat. And because we're all fat, stick it up yours, okay? All right. But here's one of the things. But here's one of the things about Pritzker. The guy's enormous. All right. He look on a stage. He looks exactly. He's got the same exact silhouette as Chris Christie does.
Okay.
The two of them would go to hug on stage and start slapping each other.
Well,
They
aside
can't
from
get their arms around each other.
the guy looks
like
like
that.
he looks like a much larger version of Buddy Hackett. This guy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but remember, they have Lizzo, and she's bold
All right.
and beautiful. So,
Yeah, but now you're talking two different things. You see, when you get a morbidly obese woman who's willing to strap on whatever kind of weird dental floss and glitter outfit that they want to, so they can parade her around in front of the world, she's got to have some sort of a talent to counteract that, so they can call her, brave and beautiful and all the rest of that stuff. You get a big fat guy and stick him out onto the thing, you get Chris Farley. Okay,
but Chris Farley wasn't a billionaire.
The dad
billionaire
bod
is beautiful.
The dad bod is as far as we're going to go to saying that that's ideal. Once you're a couple of pounds over the dad bod, you're no longer ideal. The visual with Pritzker, Americans don't want to vote for a fat person. I hate to say it, but if you look at the studies, when it comes to being a visual, the American people are not going to want to vote for that guy. It's not going to be a good visual to have the two of them, Harris and Pritzker, on a stage together and try to be part of some photo op. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And let me tell you something. The Democrats understand that. Democrats understand that they are going to try and have to put somebody in there who's going to be the counterweight to Kamala, or they're going to have to double down on Kamala.
I get what you're saying, Frank, but I think here's my reasoning, because I understand your reasoning. Here's my reasoning. They already know they're going to lose. The question isn't, are they going to lose? The question is, do they lose with embarrassment, or do they lose and keep power in the House and in the Senate? If they go with Pritzker, he's a governor, that gives the impression of leadership. They already have the DEI under Kamala, so they have the protections there. And he brings in, he has $1 billion, which means they can easily get $100 million out of him to bolster their campaign for the next 3 months to make it look like they're competitive so that they can keep the House and the Senate. That's why they need every other name you can bring out isn't going to come with $100 million.
Yeah, but you're thinking that this guy's actually going to give them $100 million. What incentive does this guy have to give over 10% of his net worth to a losing cause?
He gets to run. He's a front runner in 2028.
He's going to be the front runner in 2028 or one of, regardless. And it gives him another 4 years. It gives him another 4 years to Dexter trim himself, to try and do something about it. But he's got there is nothing in it for this guy right now to try and go. Remember, nobody votes for the bottom of the ticket, but the bottom of the ticket has been used to discredit the top of the ticket more times than it has ever been used to enhance it.
I get your reasoning.
Not only that, Americans tend to be.
I'm going to tell you who the VP is. I'm going to tell you who the VP is. They need somebody young.
No, it's not going to be Michelle. It's not going to be Michelle.
No, I said young, not hung.
That ties into moron of the week. Come back later.
All right. What are the qualifications we were talking about before as far as being president? You have to be 35 years of age, and you cannot have been found guilty of treason. All right, that's pretty much all it is. You know who's turning 35 in October?
It's not going to be AOC. It's not going to happen. Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
You also claimed Biden was never going to drop out of the race, Michael.
Yes, I did, and I was wrong about that.
I'm hedging my bets. I'm hedging my bets because every week it gets stranger and stranger and stranger, and the stars are aligning that she's been the last week. He has been making an awful lot of waves on Capitol Hill to the point where even she made with the former secretary of the former director of the Secret Service, bringing points up there where she actually had Republicans and Democrats agreeing with her.
That's because they're all scared for their own damn lives.
Yeah,
because they all get death threats too. And if she screwed over one of them, and by the way, AOC, the progressive movement, the Democratic Socialists of America, they're not very well loved by Democrats either. So, not unreasonable to think that she would be on the lower priority list.
Has the Democrat Party in the last week or two demonstrated even slightly, even remotely, that Democrat voters are on their mind?
I can go back years with them saying no, they're not concerned about that.
The Democrat Party does not give a shit about the Democrat voters or the Republican voters or any voter for that matter. All they care about is which person they can fool to pull the lever. That's all they care about. They don't care about the person. They don't care about the party. They care about the power. They care about the mission, their agenda. That's it. Whoever pulls the lever, well, that's just the idiot they convinced. That's their mindset. That's their mindset. They have to have somebody over there who can enhance the ticket, to try and give her some sort of credibility to give them the antiseptic spray for taking away their ability to vote. Remember, what was it, LBJ, when he decided not to go for re-election? He announced in March. Okay, the party had an additional 4 months to prepare to try and find somebody to take command. And LBJ also didn't step in. LBJ stepped into the office. He didn't run for the office. He stepped into the office. You're talking an entirely different thing. Now you got Joe pulling out a few months before the primary after suffering a horrific defeat in a debate. The Democrats have said, screw the 14 million primary voters. We're just going to stick somebody in there that we want.
Yeah.
And you think that there's rules?
And here's the funny thing about it. Is the day before Biden issued his statement that he's dropping out, pretty much lockstep, every Democrat pundit, we support Joe. He's going to do great the next debate. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah. They did a complete about face.
Sunday morning in the morning talk shows, surrogates for Biden were saying he's in this race.
And he is going to stay. He will not drop out. And then just as soon as he released that statement, they're all on the Harris bandwagon.
Yeah.
Utterly ridiculous.
Like I said, the conventional assumptions are out the window for this election. Nothing is going to make sense. It doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't matter what people say. Nothing. Up is down, down is up, left is right, right is left. Everything is out the window.
And to be honestly truthful on this, it's because we have gotten away from how we used to decide the presidency and the vice presidency.
Agreed.
Which is fully laid out in the 12th Amendment.
Yeah, because they ran into too many problems with the original method. You had the president who won the election.
The original method
was the vice president was the guy that came runner up.
Well, the original method was set up so that all the candidates ran. The delegates to the Electoral College cast their vote for two people. And the person with the most votes was president. The person with the second highest amount of votes became vice president, provided that they both had a majority of votes. Okay. That failed several times because actually at least once it failed because they couldn't get a majority of votes for a single candidate to become president.
Wasn't that the Burr?
Yes.
Jefferson and Burr?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as a result, the leading candidate didn't even win. It was sent to Congress or the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives then installed Jefferson to be president, even though Burr was the leader from the Electoral College vote. Okay. And there were several times that it did have to go to Congress, but Congress did eventually vote in the candidate that had the most Electoral College votes. That one time is when Congress went against what the Electoral College had decided.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
to avoid that, they did the 12th Amendment in 1804, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the 12th Amendment came out that the Electoral College was to cast one vote for president and one vote for vice president. And those votes must be for people from different states. That's why Newsom absolutely cannot be vice president. Absolutely cannot. And that the qualifications for vice president are the same as being president. So they must be eligible to still be president. So that again rules out, because there's a lot of chatter that people will say that they're going to choose Obama to be the vice president, and then Kamala will step aside. No, Obama cannot be vice president. He's already served his 2 terms, and he cannot have any other terms. So that is completely wrong as well. So we know Newsom's out. We know Obama's out. So that still leaves quite a field for others. Now, where we started getting into these joint tickets, and Dahl, you came up with some research today as to where we started coming up with a joint president, vice president ticket.
Right.
So why don't you go ahead and jump into that?
Okay. So the let me see here. So the selection of the vice president and the president campaigns actually comes about from 1804. Afterwards, the first time that you see a president and vice president together on a single ticket during a campaign is in 1824, and that was with John Quincy Adams and shoot, who was the other guy? Is one moment, please. There is John Quincy Adams and John Calhoun. And then the first election where a president chose his running mate was Franklin Pierce with William King in 1852. Now, a constitutional lawyer later on by the name of, is it Kim? Let me see. I got to go back through here. Let me see if I can bring up her X profile real quick. Yeah, here it is. Chris Ann Hall talks about FDR when he was going into his third term. He basically said that if they wanted him to run for a third term, he had to be able to choose his own vice presidential candidate. It couldn't be a party nomination. It had to be somebody that he wanted. And so he took Truman, I think. Oh boy, I don't remember. But this has come up several times, and from one place, no less, was the Institute of Politics at the John F. Kennedy School of Government and Harvard University ran a study in 1976, report of the study group on vice presidential selection. It's quite an extensive document, but they talk about how the handpicking of, let me see if I can bring it up. You share, present, share screen. There we go. This one, share. There we go. Should be popping up. There we go. Let's see if I can get it a little bigger for everyone to see at home. Okay, whoop, too big. Come on, back up. There. It says the present method of handpicking running mates after nomination. This is 1976 now. Has not always been the norm in the United States. The original system gave the office to the candidate who ran second in the presidential contest, and each presidential elector cast 2 ballots. The runner-up became vice president until Jefferson and Burr. The top 2 contenders tended to be political rivals before and after the election. Now, in a way, this would be an excellent balance within the executive system, because if you have 2 people with opposing viewpoints, and the vice president is basically the main advisor to the president, there would always be this voice in his ear saying, hey, do you really think we should go with this policy? This is why I don't think we should. Granted, the president at the end of the day has full executive power and privilege to be able to enforce and enact the laws that were given by Congress, but there would still be that little voice on his shoulder, sort of like the devil and the angel that would be going back and forth with the two, giving more thought to policy. Well, that stopped after the 12th Amendment changed the system by providing for separate balloting for the president and vice president. Then they talk about political parties gaining strength, and it was between, 1972
and 1831 is when the first party party convention was held.
Right, replaced the selection by congressional caucuses, and they became genuine running mates. So this system is young comparatively to the first. Well, I guess it's older than the original system, but it's young comparatively to what we're doing now. But this system tended to produce vice presidential nominees who are personally ideologically compatible with the head of the ticket, the study found. So later on, we come into 1972 to 74, where they looked at different alternatives for picking the vice presidential selection. And it was at this point that you have members of the press, television, academia, and others discussing in detail the merits and limitations of such proposals as separate primaries or even separate elections for vice presidential candidates. And in the end, they just decided to attach them to the presidential ticket. Hearings and discussions were conducted by the Democratic Party's Commission on Vice Presidential Selection, which was chaired at the time by Senator Humphrey, and by a subcommittee 2 of the Rule 29 Committee of the Republican National Committee. Then later, Democratic National Chairman Robert Strauss explained to reporters that he felt they had a very poor system for choosing vice presidents, and he regrets that they didn't do something about it at the time. And then basically said they were going to try and wing it. that was the Democrats saying that. Then they talked about 1980. So this has been a question for a really long time on what the office of the vice president is for, how we make the selection for them, and generally the only consensus that anybody can come into is that they ought to have the qualifications to be able to step into the presidency in the circumstances of necessity. That really is the only consensus that they can come to. So that's why we continue to use this system where presidents will nominate a running mate that stays ideologically true to the president's original platform. It just seems odd to me that you would not have something more concrete in place.
Well, here's my thinking on it. Number one, the presidency wasn't supposed to have the amount of power that it has today.
True.
Okay. And as a result, having separate president, vice president, even if they're from opposite parties, shouldn't have been able to have that much detriment on the way the country operates and the way the way laws are made and so forth. Okay, so they could be of different ideological backgrounds because the laws and legislation and everything was supposed to be coming out of Congress. It wasn't supposed to be coming from the presidency. The only impact on legislative processes that the president would have would be his veto power, which can be overridden. Okay, that was it.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we have presidents literally making up their own rules, making up their own laws, willy-nilly, in which the Supreme Court slapped down a lot of those here recently, and hopefully they end up slapping down more. Now, I still do believe that we should be having 2 votes cast by the Electoral College.
Right.
Okay, one for president, one for vice president. I also think that this primary process that we are currently undergoing, especially in a 2-party system, is a huge injustice to this country, especially given recent events.
Yeah.
because with the Trump failed assassination, we easily could have had the Republican Party shoving its own contender down our throats.
Yeah.
Without any primary process or anything else. Now we see it happening on the Democrats because the selected candidate decided to withdraw at the 11th hour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That shouldn't be. Okay. It shouldn't be. I don't agree with the primary process. Haven't agreed with it for a good long time for facts like this. Okay. If we are going to have true, honest elections where the people decide who they are going to choose as their electoral delegates, then we must allow everyone that wants to run for office that is eligible to run for office.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're
No
never going to.
primary process, no kicking people out or any of that stuff.
They're never going to let that happen at
I
this
know
point.
they're not going to.
At this point, no.
But should it happen that way? Yeah. I think that would be one way to kind of bridge the divide. Graham
Because
actually makes a good point.
if there would have been multiple Democrats right now, all the Democrats that ran in the primaries should be raising hell of alarms about Kamala just being unanimously appointed.
RFK did. But Dow, what were you saying about Graham's comment?
I was like, Graham actually puts in that knowing what we know now about the presidency and how the office has changed over time. If we voted for the VP, say after the president was determined, would that act as a bridge in the severe polarization in our country? Because essentially what it would be doing is returning to a state where you have in that same office a vice president that was also chosen by the people to kind of be the watchdog over the president.
Actually, here's the thing. There is no constitutional requirement to require that citizens vote for the president.
Right.
The only constitutional requirement is that electoral members of the Electoral College vote for the president.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Most states have adopted policies, programs, processes, and so forth to select the delegates of the Electoral Colleges. I also don't believe in this majority take all of the Electoral College delegates for a state.
Yeah.
I believe that should be split up based upon how the vote goes. The only ones that should be granted to the popular vote in a state would be the ones that are basically counted as the Senate representation. So two of the votes for each state would be granted to the popular vote. The rest of the delegates would be split according to how the vote actually went in the state. So if you have, just for instance, okay, Maine actually does this way, Nebraska does too. You have 5 delegates.
Mm-hmm.
2 of those delegates are because of Senate representation. 3 are because of their members in the House of Representatives. If that state votes 2/3 for one candidate and 1/3 for another candidate, they split those remaining 3 delegates between the candidates based on the proportion of the vote.
Right.
Okay. And that's the way it should be in every state.
Okay, but so I understand that's what you're looking at, but looking at Graham's comment here, I'll answer my opinion, not Frank and Jen. I'd love to hear yours. So, Dal, you like Graham's idea?
I think it could be entertaining to argue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my thought is
there's an argument there.
Okay. there's an argument there, and it's a horrible idea. And this isn't about you, Graham. And I know Graham, he's on my show, and I'm happy to have him commenting. But I think it's a horrible idea, and let me explain why. It's because, one, you're going to actually increase the amount of
Polarization,
propaganda and polarization, because now you have two people to attack. You're also going to add in more corruption, as there's now more people to buy. You have to buy. You're going to see more influencing, and the same kind of thing we're seeing with Biden and his money coming into the race. You'd be seeing that kind of money going into the vice president as well as all of the hype that goes with it, and all the propaganda and all of the partisanship to get people to rank and get that position. And you'll also see the corruption after the fact, kind of like what we already saw, but it would become even more important for Hunter Biden, people doing what Hunter Biden did, selling the influence of the vice president, just like we saw Joe Biden wielding that power in the Ukraine. Not to say it's not happening now. Obviously, Hunter Biden did it. But now you attach a race where there's $50 to $100 million. Yeah, it's going to cost $200 million, maybe $1 billion to become president, but it's going to cost you maybe 1/10 that to be VP. Now, not only is it already valuable, now you've elevated it because you put in a minimum price tag to even be able to play the game. And now that elevates the amount of corruption that goes into it even more. And obviously, since now there's a lot of money involved, both actively before and after the race, and there's going to be more political influence, you're going to have a whole lot more political bickering and attacks. So I like the idea. The idea sounds great. It sounds like, well, that'll make people feel like they're more involved and everyone will calm down. Hell no, it'll make it even worse. You'll see, we're already going to see Chicago burn in August. That's going to happen because the left, the only thing they know is do what we say. Here's my feeling. You have it too, or we will fight. They are violent like crazy. Look at what they just did in DC. Violent and more than happy to support terrorism and genocide. Crazy people that they are. And you're telling me you're going to give them 2 massive votes about controlling the country? No, they'd lose their minds. That's my point of view. What, Frank, Jan, what do you guys think?
Anytime we have another option for another level of corruption, I'm kind of like, go for it.
Okay, so
how much further could we screw things up? Let's just get. I'm voting for the big meteor. That's pretty much it at this point. No, look, this is. I think part of the problem I have with the whole thing is when we talk about checks and balances. Yeah. I think checks and balances was originally the idea behind checks and balances was supposed to be that you wouldn't have too much of a power dynamic swing to one way, one side or another. Is that things would sort of gradually move around, slow the process a little bit, so that rationality and reason were to, be the prevailing factor of the day. Checks and balances has become, how do we stop the other side at all costs? It's no longer a matter of checks and balances. It's not even a matter. They don't care anymore about what's good for the country, what works for the country, what's bad for the country. That side has an idea. We have to be the opposite. Diametrically oppose everything to it. If you have a situation where one person is allowed to pick the president's running mate, you are going to put somebody in with that president that is just the diametric opposition. So even if you have, we think about, okay, well, this is just a chain of command. This is a right of succession. Well, if something happened to the president, now you have a leader who's going to be completely polar opposite than what the voters had originally wanted. So if the president is being selected by the plurality of the voters through our system of the college, and something were to happen, now you've got someone taking that place in complete opposition to what was just voted on. And I think that's kind of a slap in the face to the voters, to say, okay, how do you change gears that quickly? Without, if the voters want the vice president, that's one thing. But if you're going to say, okay, we're going to have a different set where we're going to put this in after that one or whatever, too much room for too many shenanigans. And I think that way too many problems with that. And the other thing also we forget is the vice president is not only just a matter of being there as a right of succession, is also supposed to be the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So you can have party, president, and people all in line with a certain idea of legislation that we need, or some sort of policy that we need to get done. But the vice president can come in and undermine all of that with one vote.
Yeah,
that's an awful lot. That's an awful lot of power to put in the hands of somebody who, for the most part, is ceremonial at best.
Now, what you see up on the screen, this is from Ballotpedia. These are the filing deadlines to announce your candidacy for president.
Mhm.
She has exceeded every one of the filing deadlines that are listed on this. She has not met a single one of them. So, according to state laws, Kamala Harris is ineligible to run for president in every state.
Well, isn't it the secretaries of state for each state that has to be able to sign off on that person's name being put on the ballot in the first place?
Yes, that's usually
It
based
depends on
on
the state.
yeah, but
All
that's
right.
usually based on the results of the primary. They
Okay.
just sort what they
So-
call they're certifying it that this went by the rules as the state has them. This
Right.
person
Well,
won that, and they
Well, now-
verified it.
Right, but now we're asking them to usurp the rules that they know were the proper thing that they did it, as proper as denying everybody the right to vote or the right to run. There were primaries held in these states. There was a process. Joe Biden won that process. His name is duly supposed to be on that ballot, and now they're going in without any procedure at all and saying, okay, we're going to swap this name for that name. Why? What would give them the even the remotest idea that whomever is supposed to certify that is going to go along with it?
Because there are Democrats in many of those states.
All right, but what about every Republican state? Would they say, no, we're not putting her name on the ballot? That's not your nominee. Your nominee is the sleepy, creepy, kid sniffing guy. That's your nominee.
No. Then they're racist, sexist, and so nobody should ever vote for them again, and don't give them any funding because
I know,
they're
but-
obviously
but
a member of the
but
Ku Klux Klan.
But hasn't the Democrat Party in recent months, since the conviction of Donald Trump on 37 felonious charges in New York, all come out and said that they are now the party of law and order?
They've been saying that for a little while, yeah. But
Right. The Republicans can no longer claim to be the party of law and order. Democrats are the party of law and order now because the Republicans have nominated a convicted felon. Well, under the guise of the law, if any of these people in any of these states responsible for the certification of the ballot were to say, I'm sorry, but under the law, Kamala Harris cannot be your nominee because she did not meet the critical deadlines and nobody voted for her.
but
This is your nominee.
But if you notice, when you write in, you're signing the petitions and part of the ballot access process is that there is I think they call it, different states have different names for it, but there's basically a group of individuals that in case you die in office, if you die running for that position, getting the petitions or running on the ballot, there's a board of individuals who are a selecting committee. And those individuals are there to replace. So if you are no longer in that race, they get to pick someone to take your place. Now, the ballot won't change. The ballot will still say Joe Biden, but running will be someone else. And that is, if you ever look at any of the petitions, there is that committee. That's their job. If you die or drop out the race, they replace you.
That's not a matter of somebody dropping out of the race. It's somebody dropping dead out of the race.
No,
There's no provision.
Technically, it's if they are not in the race. If you read that, it doesn't say that they die. It's they're not in the race.
All right, but where is the contract between that committee and the voter?
When they sign the petitions.
What petition? I didn't sign no petition.
You're not a Democrat. It's for the Democratic Party.
What petition did they sign?
In the beginning of this year, when they went out and it was petition season, when this is why petitions matter. They come to your door. Hey, knock, knock. You're a Republican. Then I'm a Republican. I used to be a Republican committee man. I have my list of all the people in my district. I will go to their door, knock on it. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, but not
all the candidates.
But not every Democrat voter signs a petition.
They all don't have to. They just need enough. They don't all have to. They just need enough.
So they need 1,500 names or something?
Depends on the state, depends on the district and the race that you're going for. The numbers vary. So it's different in every place. And depends on, again, what you're running for and what state you're in. But there's a number. And once you hit that number, you're on the ballot. And then if you have two people who qualified, that's why you have the primaries. And the winner of those primaries, again, goes forward. But there's a selection committee. And they have the right to replace that candidate given criteria that candidate isn't running. It's part of the contract. So in that sense, yes, they could do that. But that, again, the problem for Democrats, that's a state issue. That's state by state. Every single state would have to go through that process. All of the people who were part of that committee have to then come together, convene, and pick someone. If they're going to use that as their reasoning, then we have 50 different, these boards are all different in every single state. They all have to have meetings. They all have to say yes or no. And then they could replace her. And that would still not confirm her because she can still go to the DNC at the national convention and she still has to be affirmed there. That would just get her on the ballot. This is somewhat a little bit in behind baseball. This is how things work. This is the operation of our government. And most people don't know anything about this because they're not part of parties. They don't do petitioning. They're not involved, which is why the system's all screwed up. But the various ways that they could legally do this, Democrats haven't done. So even there is a process, they're not using that process. Easiest way to say it.
The party of democracy, the party of law and order.
Yeah, they're screwing people. I mean, at the end of the day, they are screwing their people because, as I said, there is a process and they won't use it because they want the advantage. They want to pick someone and they don't care what rank and file say. Just like they said, oh, RFK, yeah, get out the party. That's not what the public said.
No, I guess choice to them only matters on one set of circumstances, nothing else.
You know, it's always like this. They believe in the freedom. You have the freedom to agree with whatever they have already said. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely free to agree with them. And that's about it. So Grace asks, wait, you said this was done this year? So this is I don't know that this was the plan all along, but yes, petitions were this year. That was the beginning of this year for every party across every state.
Now, do we think that those petitions were in place not necessarily for this set of circumstances, but for the Kennedy set of circumstances? They might have realized that they would be going to be getting some challenges from within their own party, so that they wanted to make sure that they had the ability to protect themselves from unwanted elements like Kennedy.
They did. He did get petitions. He was getting the petition signed. It's kind of like now he's in 8 states. He's been going through the petition process. Harder because he's not now a Democrat, but he's still in that process.
Yeah, and that's
they kicked him out before he could get there.
Kamala Harris hasn't received a single petition.
No,
endorsing her to be president. She has 0 signatures.
Yeah. If anything, she should be doing what RFK Jr. is doing at this point, because she missed all the windows.
But she's missed every deadline.
Yeah.
And she hasn't been minted as the nominee yet either. I mean, that's the other thing, is that everybody's acting like she's already got it, but they haven't had their convention yet. They haven't put the delegates officially in her camp. So she's not even
officially, she's ineligible.
By
state laws.
I totally agree with you guys, but what I see in all these articles and newscasts and everything is, well, because she was part of the ticket, everything else is null and void.
The ticket didn't exist. It never existed. See, the ticket's only in people's mind.
I get that, and you get that, but this is part of the brainwashing.
Right, it's part of the low info.
It's part of the ticket because it was the Biden-Harris ticket when he became nominee.
Yeah,
so therefore, by him stepping down, it's her baby. You got a backer, you got a supporter, it don't matter what the law states, because we don't the laws in the Constitution.
The only proviso that would get her automatically onto the ballot is if Joe Biden died. God forbid he died, and then she would be made. Wouldn't her incumbency, even if it's so short, place her on the ballot?
No, she would be. Yes, if Joe Biden stopped being president for whatever reason, yes, she would be able to assume, like they do the 25th Amendment on him, which I think is appropriate, because if he can't, he's part-time. We don't need a part-time president. That's just not worth it. He needs to have the 25th Amendment against him. So he's gone. She becomes president. Yes, that doesn't automatically qualify her to be on the ballot. Still has to go through the same process, just like Joe Biden had to go through the process to get onto the petitions, to get onto the ballot, to get the votes. She still has to do the same process. She doesn't automatically just absorb it. So it gets tricky at this point, because now we're talking about some of the legal loopholes that are in there.
Yeah.
But essentially, they are literally taking advantage of the public, not knowing anything about this process, and they're cutting them out completely. This is the party that's for the people, that's looking out for the minorities, and they've just cut them all out and said, basically, they're saying the same thing that Joe Biden said to Charlemagne. You ain't whatever your group is, whatever your category and equity is. You're not that group unless you vote Democrat. That's what they're doing. It's very, very, very insulting.
It's actually part of a plan. I was recently looking at a presentation from 1968 by G. Edward Griffin, who is he's still around, and I believe he's head of Red Pill USA or some action group like that. But in 1968, he was talking about in a presentation called Worse Than War, the communists rise through the United States by using what's called parliamentary socialism. And it was an amazing presentation. And if you have an opportunity, take an hour, listen to him, and if you apply what he's talking about to what you see in the news, you know that the play right now is that they're closing the pinchers. They're doing it haphazardly and ham-fisted, because normally what they would do is they would continue to go along as legal as possible in order to totally capture the country. But they have to rush it now because people are starting to see them come apart at the seams. And the only thing that we can do at this point is not participate in any kind of violent action and go out and vote. Turn out. You need something like 70 to 80% turnout to beat this.
No,
minimum.
not that high. Not
minimum.
That high. No, I think way lower. To beat what we're seeing, much lower time. We just need people to pay attention. I mean, people should really stop. As an example, right now, for today, I mean, we're going to see this change next week, going into the end of next week. You're going to see there's going to be a sea change in the way people are talking about the race and the way they're talking about Kamala, as people finally find out who she actually is. But the current thing they're doing out today is Donald Trump is afraid of Kamala because he won't debate her. She's not the nominee. They leave that part out. He doesn't have to debate her. She's not the person. Just like last week, the Trump administration denied and said, no, we're not going to do the vice presidential debate because she's not the nominee. She wasn't the vice presidential pick. And Joe Biden might not be the president. Well, that was true. And now, Kamala's running around going, see, Donald Trump's afraid of me. You might not be the Democrat pick. It's very possible someone else can come out of August in Chicago. So no, he shouldn't be debating with her. He shouldn't guarantee it, because isn't that a way to try and steal this from the public? I've been watching, I don't know if you guys have, I've been watching a lot of the progressive channels talking about this whole thing. They are livid. Yeah. They hate Kamala, and they hate what the Democrats are doing to America right now. And they don't even like what I like. They don't even agree with anything I have to say about politics, and they agree with me on this. It's really incredible.
The irony being that Kamala herself is a self-declared communist.
She is?
Yeah.
When does she declare that?
Every time she talks about equity.
Well, yeah. But
every time she talks about equity, she's always talking about how we need to give the person that's set behind the more resources from people that are working, because they're disadvantaged. That is communism every single time.
De facto, yeah.
Yeah. And they hate her for it, because she's not really part of the working class. That's how you know that this is not legitimate, because she doesn't have their support. She's part of the elites. She's the front man right now. Right now, she's the front man for whatever elite capture is going on. And those progressive groups are not included in her vision. They're going to be subject to the same equity solutions that she's going to try to apply to everybody else.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. To answer, Graham asked a question here, and I'll just jump in with that real quick. Graham asked, Democrats and their allies in legacy media are bragging about record fundraising and voter registrations, and he doesn't know of any way to verify if those new voter registrations are legitimate. Well, one, I don't know if they actually have as many voter registrations as they're claiming, because no one's been able to see that and count them. So they haven't presented that to anyone. It's just a number. And we've seen they've been very dishonest about a lot of numbers. Like they keep saying, well, Kamala Harris is winning in polls. No, she's not. Kamala Harris is beating Trump. No, she's not. Kamala Harris is blowing past expectations. She's 1 point better than what Biden was doing in every poll. And that was good enough for Pelosi to say that Biden had no path to victory. And she's only 1 point better in every poll. There's been 6 polls that have come out, all done on the same day. This, according to Real Clear Politics, you can see it for yourself. And one poll had Kamala up 1 point, one had her up 3 points. The other 4 polls had Trump up 3, up 7, up 1, and the others were all up 1. Trump's still up. It's the same. He's up the same amount he has always been. The lead hasn't changed. But
yeah, he's up by 1.7 according to Real Clear.
Okay, so another poll might have come out because he was up a little bit higher. He was in the 2s earlier today. But here's the thing.
That's
so
on
I don't trust
just a straight Trump Harris. If you do the 5-way, he's up by 1.8.
Yeah, I was looking at that earlier. Earlier it was slightly different. But the bigger point is the way they mislead the public about these polls, how they're very carefully wording these. If you actually look at the full sentence of what they're saying, with this group of voters, with 18 to 25-year-olds, that's the smallest group of voters in the entire nation. But she's doing well with them, doing better with them than anyone else. She got 50% of all black voters and Trump got 0. What? That's like statistically impossible.
To speak to that, actually, Graham, if you want more information about the new voter registrations, go look up some of Tim Pool's reporting. They were covering the massive jump in registrations and what they surmise. Now they haven't been able to prove it yet. What they surmise is that Democrats are sending activists to universities.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're seeing is there's a lot of registrations coming from these universities with no IDs, which means that whoever's signing them up is not asking for any kind of identification when they sign them up. And so what ends up happening is these registrations that have no IDs get checked against the Social Security registry. And what they're finding is that almost 23% to 30% of these names that are getting sent to the Social Security agency come back with no number. So the numbers are pumped up because there's a lot of names there, but not all of them are citizens. Some of them are foreign students that are being registered as voters. And they're obviously being denied voter registration because they don't have a matching Social Security number to ascertain whether they can legally vote or not in the federal election. But the number is there. And that's what they're surmising is happening, is especially in the area of 18 to 25-year-olds, Mike, that number can only be justified if they're signing up students for registering to vote that are not American students. They're part of a foreign exchange or foreign group of students that are on campus.
Yeah, and
right now, Real Clear Politics is showing this to be the outcome of the 2025 election or 2024 election.
I think they're wrong. I think it's going to be 325. There's a couple of races I think they've got wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nevada is one of them. It's Nevada, New England.
Well, Nevada's showing as being red, Trump.
Oh, sorry.
I think Virginia.
I don't have my glasses on. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
I think Virginia is probably going to surprise people.
Virginia, I think, is one that could go Trump.
The other one is possibly
Minnesota's the one that may go Trump, also.
Yeah. But honestly, I think as it stands right now, that probably is fairly accurate comparative to polling.
Well, if Virginia goes Trump, then that would be 325.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might also see Hawaii
actually,
change.
I kind of think New Hampshire may go Trump also.
Yeah.
It's going to be, people will be at this moment. It looks like this is going to be mostly a landslide. And I think the more people learn about Kamala, they learn about her record, her history.
And the more word salad she puts out.
We look at the 4 years that have just passed by, and then you add in the fact that she was complicit in the lie being told to the American people, because she, as vice president, absolutely, she cannot deny that she did not know his mental state. So you put that all together, and I believe by election day, they'll pull out every trick in the book. She's going to lose. They know that. They don't care because she's only going to lose enough, but allow them to get the Congress and they'll still be able to get the House of Representatives and the Senate because she's not going to drag down everything all at once.
But you think Democrats are going to take the House and Senate?
No, I think that they're going to try and hold the seats they already have.
Yeah.
Not
and
getting.
I think right now they're saying
they might actually take the House. They may take the House, but they'll lose the Senate and the presidency.
Real Clear Politics is showing, or Real Clear Polling is showing
Republicans
right now the Democrats up by 0.2 points for the generic congressional vote. And typically that's been running with the Republicans in the lead.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as people, again, get to know Harris more, that's going to start changing as well. Okay, and once people start realizing what the Democrats did, that's going to change even more.
Yeah.
Okay, especially if you get more organizations like BLM calling out the Democrat Party for this.
Yeah. And User's right. There is no winning unless you turn out.
Exactly.
Like we have to turn out. I would like to see the 70 to 80% turnout. I don't think we'll ever get it. You might be able to cross the finish line with 55, 60%. But to really this cannot just be an election where we manage to stave off some sort of inevitable destruction as a country. This needs to be the kind of vote where it's so punitive to people that tried to screw this country and the American people that they think twice about doing it again.
Not gonna happen. We're gonna see the same kind of numbers.
On a comment that you made in the chat. Okay, disability is funded by Social Security, which is true, but not everybody pays into that fund. Only taxpayers pay into that fund. There are a lot of people that are on disability that have never paid a dime into that.
The lower 40% of incomes in America don't pay taxes and never have.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
Hey, we got a super chat.
Yeah, we did.
All
Thank
right.
you, John, for the super chat.
Thank you, John.
All right, super chat. Mike in the panel, what are your thoughts on New York State removing realistic? Oh, yes. I was going to talk about this on Sunday, but what are your thoughts on New York State removing realistic active shooter drills from schools? So this is legislation that was just put in today. I believe it was New York State Senator Leah Webb that I think she's the one who introduced the bill. And basically what they're looking to do is, because the 150,000 plus illegal aliens are costing New York State billions of dollars. We need money. So they're trying to scrape money from everywhere that they can. And that means scaling back. It's very expensive to have active shooter drills, which involve the police as well as the schools. And they're saying, well, not only will it save money, but the kids are being triggered, meaning that they're scared by these active shooter drills. So to protect their feelings and to raise more income for those illegal aliens, they want to get rid of the active shooter drills with police and the school. My thought on that, very simply, is this is insane and it is stupid. The very same Democrats that are recommending this, Leah Webb, the Democrats in New York State and New York State legislature, these are the people who are screaming about Uvalde, who said they don't like the response of the Uvalde police, which I agree. And guess what stops the Uvalde police from doing what they did? Better training. Turn it into muscle memory. It's not them trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? Do I want to be the first one through the door? Who's going to be there? Do we have any kind of weapon to fight against this guy? Do we have bulletproof vests? It's already rote. You already know all your equipment. You know how to use the equipment. You already know how you're going to breach into different types of buildings, different types of scenarios. That's what the training's for. And you can give the confidence to the kids that they're going to be protected because the police know what they're doing. That's why they're practicing. So they're the assurance. The kids aren't triggered. They're reassured that they're going to be safe because these professionals practice to make sure they will be safe. This is stupid. This is New York State trying to find a way to pull money and to put it towards illegal aliens, and they don't have the balls to just tell the American people, we just want more of your money. Screw you. And we don't care about your kids. That's my personal thought on it. What do you guys think?
I think, why don't we take away the gun-free zone areas and allow our teachers to carry? Have our ex-military, ex-police be on campuses, concealed carry.
And bring back firearm training for every student.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing. Democrats are the ones who made these gun-safe zones. And 90% of the issues when it comes to mass shootings are where? Gun-free zones.
So
that's true.
Dal, what do you guys think?
No, well, go ahead, Frank.
I always laugh at all of these. We're going to have active shooter drills. 95% of any of the school shootings that have taken place in this country could have been thwarted with locking a friggin' door.
Yeah.
True.
Okay. If you want to have a reduction in school shootings, here's the things that you have to do. One, security procedures at the doors, not to exclude, things like metal detectors and such like that, but locking doors. That's the number one thing. Locking doors to prevent access to the school from anybody who doesn't have access. The second thing we have to do is identify troubled students. We don't do that anymore in the schools. We don't do that anymore. We shuffle kids from one class to another, and then we give them a label, we give them some medication, and we expect everything to be fine.
Well,
we don't have punishment in school anymore. We don't have punishment in school anymore. You get a kid who gets smacked around a dozen times a week by, 5 different bullies in the school. The kid finally turns around and punches a bully out. That kid gets in trouble, but the bully doesn't.
Yeah.
And you wonder why you have these kids that come back and they target. They have their target list. Well, why do you think those target lists exist? Why do you think those students exist? Because you no longer have counselors in the school. You no longer have guidance counselors. You no longer have people that are looking out for the interest of the student. What you have is people looking out for the interest in getting people shuffled into the next grade so that they can keep the numbers up for high graduation rates, so they can keep the amount of money coming in to fund the school and fund the programs that don't do anything. The focus, if you want to keep school shootings down, the focus should be on the kids, educating the kids, not indoctrinating the kids, and realizing when kids have problems that maybe that kid has got to be pulled out to the side and be maybe a little special extra attention to address what might be going on with that kid. Identify the problems. Another problem that we have is we don't look at these problems as being something that can be addressed outside of the school. We don't have a look at what the kids' home lives are. You know, these kids that they wind up coming from really bad situations, they come into schools, and then all you do is you worry about looking at the kid from 8 to 4. You don't ever think about what happens to that kid when that kid goes home. You know, what happens between 4 and 8? That has a lot to do with contributing to why that kid might be acting the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talk about, okay, if we arm the teachers, we bring in retired cops, bring in retired military. Well, you can't do any of that unless you change the focus on the way you think about guns.
Yes.
Right.
You're never going to have armed personnel in the school so long as you turn the gun into the bad guy and neglect to identify the bad guy. There are bad people out there. We just had a woman in California yesterday just killed 2 people with a samurai sword.
Mhm.
All right, you got people. I mean, what was the last school? I forgot where it was in Europe. Somebody came in and killed 17 kids with a machete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, it's not a matter of the tool; it's a matter of the person. And yeah, we could always talk a good game and say, well, if we only armed the teachers, we only did this, we only did that. You got the governor of New York is outlawing the ability for the regular person to go out and buy body armor.
Yep.
So if you have a teacher that
Wow.
goes to one of these schools that says, you know what, 70% of the kids in that school are carrying guns when they're off campus. I don't have any idea how many guns are making it into the building. I want to protect myself, and maybe I want to wear myself a piece of Kevlar. Maybe I want to wear myself a piece of ceramic. Maybe I want to keep myself safe. Guess what? You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to own body armor because the governor of your state said only police and only law enforcement and military are allowed to own body armor right
Mhm,
now.
mhm.
When you have a governor of a state that doesn't allow you to protect yourself with defensive capabilities, what makes anybody think that they're going to ever see a day where schools were able to use something offensive? Your best defense is a good offense, but if you don't even allow people to act defensively, don't ever expect them to act offensively. And then what do we have today? Gets rolled out. They're putting in a new scanning system in the subway to identify when
Mhm.
people are armed,
Yeah.
when people have guns.
So they're gonna violate the Fourth Amendment to search you with an X-ray machine.
Yeah, they're going to have these machines that are going to try and identify. They're using it's a culmination of various technologies, including lasers, X-rays, this, that, and everything else. It's supposed to help identify when somebody is armed. Well, this technology's been around for a while because airports have been using it for a while. But isn't it funny how they decide they're going to use that after we have a decision come there from the Supreme Court that says, hey, New York, you got to allow New Yorkers to actually exercise their Second Amendment. And then New York turns around and wants to pass, restrictions on what they call sensitive areas. This new program is not about catching criminals that are carrying guns and knives on the train. It's about turning criminals into Americans who are law-abiding, who want to protect themselves.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about catching people who have now received 160,000 people have now paid the freight on filing for concealed carry permits in New York City. They haven't told us how many of them have been approved, but 160,000 have been filed since the Bruin decision and since the New York Pistol and Rifle Association decision. 160,000 have been filed. We don't have no idea how many have been approved. I know several that have. They want those people who say, you know what, I finally am able to carry a gun. I can go back and forth to work in that shithole neighborhood that I go to without worrying about getting mugged, murdered, raped, accosted, or whatever the hell else. I'm finally able to take that 380 and stuff it into my pocket or my waistband and be able to protect myself. You are the person that law enforcement wants to go after. You're the target.
Yeah.
Not the guy who wants to throw you onto the friggin' railroad tracks after he rifles through your pockets. Not the guy who wants to rape you. Not after the guy who wants to kill you. Stench your chain, take your wallet, take your watch, do everything else. Not that guy. That guy's not the guy that NYPD's after. No. They're after the person who just got their concealed carry permit so they can say, see, this is why we don't give you permits, because you refuse to obey the law. Well, when you turn around and you say, okay, yeah, you can own a gun, but you can't freaking carry it anyplace, what the hell do you expect? Listen, at this point, I don't care what story comes out of New York. It's a lost cause. It's a lost cause. Close up the bridges, close up the tunnels, let everybody sit in there. Mike, get out before it happens. I'm begging you, please. Get out before it happens. You've seen Escape from New York? That's the best thing that can happen to New York at this point. Just put up the friggin' wall around the city and let them cannibalize themselves, because there's no common sense left in that friggin' city. Any city that has AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as one of their representatives, doesn't have the mental fortitude to be sitting there trying to figure out how to solve problems. You are a problem.
And a lot of the problems that they're going to have are self-inflicted. I mean, when you're talking about nobody looking out for the kids with the mental issues or home issues. Well, first of all, for the home issues, how do you identify a problem with a kid and maybe they have a bad home life without actually going to the home? Right?
There's ways that you could identify what kids are having problems. We all know that there are certain kids that, just in talking to them and looking at them, looking at the behavior, you know when a kid is a little off. You know when a kid is off.
Yeah. Okay.
You know when a kid is off in a good way. You know when a kid is off in a bad way. It doesn't take an awful lot for a teacher to grab a hold of a kid after class and talk to him for 30 seconds, talk to her for 30 seconds, realize that there's a problem, and then make a referral down the line. But we don't even have systems in place for that anymore. Because when you've got 30 people employed by one school and 29 of those people are trying to figure out what to do with the 15,000 illegals that you just funneled into the school that there's no money for, that you're trying to figure out how to educate, feed, and everything else, and the American kids don't have shit left. There's no resources left for the American kids, and you wonder why do things keep getting bad? How much can you possibly keep doing to screw things up and then wonder why everything is a mess?
I mean, the other part of that is with the way that things were handled by this governor, not just Hochul, but Cuomo as well. It's created an entire generation of mental cases. Like the next two generations at least are going to be messed up because they're going to be learning from kids now turned parents that are going to not know how to react to reality. They've been fed this virtual reality.
Well, look, I'm 52. Okay, I can probably think back to my high school days. My high school class, we had 207 people that graduated in my high school class, which is a pretty small class from New York City. I think maybe there were 5 or 6 or 7 kids in the class that were questionable, that we all looked at as being, kids a little, little weird,
Yeah.
All right. And it had nothing to do with all of the DEI symptoms, that we talk about. It had nothing to do with that. It was just, when you had a kid sitting in the corner talking to the potted plant, and wrapping his head on the desk, this is the kid that you knew had some issues. All right. There were very few kids that were being medicated in my generation. Very few kids were being medicated. All right. There was a lot of things that the kids did themselves to sort of nurture some of these outcast kids into bringing them into the community. And a lot of it had to do with just being kids, playing with kids, talking with kids. You had that one kid that got ribbed a little bit more than the other kids. But you know what? It toughened that kid up a little bit. And that kid wound up becoming very well adjusted and went on to do good things. Now you have a kid that as soon as there's something wrong, they freaking medicate. They medicate. Just let's see how many more drugs they can cram down his throat. Let's put this drug down his throat. Oh, well, this one makes him do that. We'll give him this one drug too. That is, that'll counter that side effect. Well, that one's got 2 side effects. Now there's 2 more drugs. Now you got a kid who's a walking pharmacy, doesn't know how to cope with anything. Teachers don't want to deal with that kid because they're not equipped to deal with that. They were taught to educate kids. They were not taught how to be, analysts. They weren't taught how to be psychologists, psychiatrists, or anything else. So they don't have the tools necessary to deal with a kid that's got 17 different maladies and 46 different medications in them. Yeah. So what happens? They wind up pushing that kid off. You wind up having a kid that maybe you have a kid who's just really, really bright. And he or she can't sit in a room with a boring lecturer. They get fidgety. So what do? They pump them full of drugs so that the kid doesn't fidget. And then the drugs lead to other drugs. That leads to other drugs. Before you know it, you get a kid who's got 180 IQ, is now walking around like he's a teapot, doesn't know what sexy is, thinks he should go crap in a freaking kitty litter pan. You don't know what the hell's going on because the kid's brain has been fried. Because nobody knew no one knew how to work with a kid who had a gift. A kid who had a gift and nobody knew how to work with that kid. No one could identify it because they couldn't understand why the kid was bored. Oh, he's got ADHD. No, the kid is bored. It's not that he doesn't pay attention. He's bored. You're not challenging the kid. So we medicate them, and then we wonder why these kids grow up not being able to live with society, not being able to forge good relationships, not having friends. And then what happens when they do have friggin' kids? Oh, son, I remember when I was only on 14 medications when I was a kid.
True. And I can tell you, Frank, you're not far off on the mark on that because real world example, my life. And I'm a little older than you are, but I do remember when I was in 3rd grade. And I think I've talked about this before, but my 3rd grade teacher, when we were learning how to read, quote unquote, except I was reading the newspaper every day. My mother would bring home the newspaper. I read it cover to cover every day. I read dictionaries every day. We were poor. I read dictionaries and I read the encyclopedia that we had. But the teacher thought I couldn't read because I was bored in the class because the book, I had already read everything cover to cover. And what happened in my example, when I was in 3rd grade, well, I got in an argument with the teacher on a regular basis. She would kick me out the class and make me sit in the hallway because she didn't know how to deal with it because she had her presupposition in her mind and wouldn't reject that. She just kept saying, you just don't know how to read. Just admit it. That's a woman who would have probably put me on medications if she could have. But what I needed was that there was another teacher right down the hallway, Miss Brick. I'll mention her by name because she was great. And Miss Brick said, come here. Opened up a book on her desk, just to a random page. Read that. So I started reading a couple of paragraphs and I kept reading, read a page to her. She said, stop. Go sit in the back. This is now your classroom. You're going to be part of my class forever. Boom. And what happened after that? She helped me to excel. She challenged me. When I acted up in class, I think I've talked about having a dictionary that was like this big, unabridged to the 7th definition. And when I screwed up, she would pick a letter in the alphabet and I had to write down every single word in the dictionary and down to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th definition, depending on how badly I was acting up in class, which was giving me the memorization of those words because now I had to read it, write it, and then write each of the definitions down. And she's very smart about that. Okay, now I'm not going to act up because I don't want to do that. But I also learned, and I didn't know I was learning. That's the way to answer it. But the other teacher, Matter of fact, I will mention her name is Ms. Bingy. Yeah, Ms. Bingy, her answer was medication, punish the child because I'm not doing what she wanted, what she expected. It wasn't because I'm not a dumb kid, never was. You're right, Frank. We will wind up over medicating these kids because we're not looking at, wait a minute, maybe the kid can read and you're just boring. It's just that simple sometimes.
But don't leave no child behind.
Yeah.
No.
That's why nationalizing the education system was like one of the worst things that this country could have ever done.
Yeah.
It would have been much simpler just to take all that tax money that they decided to allocate to federal education programs, just give it back to the parents and let the parents build their own schools again. If you want to have some sort of standardized curriculum, I guess, but we didn't need it. How many scientists did we breed here at home just by teaching them in regular classical education styles? Now, granted, we borrowed a lot of our scientists and researchers from around the world, but they weren't grown up in a federalized system. They all had pretty much classical education. Like if you go to a European school outside of Germany, because Germany follows a Prussian model in which our own school system is based. We borrowed that from the Prussians. So if you go to any other school, so you go to a French school, you go to a colonial Greek school, like I did when I was overseas for 4 years. They are all about critical thinking, analytical skills. They're about how to get information, and they emphasize just a more classical form of education, more thinking, and they're fine. They're brilliant. All these kids are brilliant. I went over there. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed as an American going over there because I realized how average I was in terms of my education from here in the States. And then when I came back to the States and I finished my final year in high school, I eclipsed everybody. That it had nothing to do with my ability as a student, because I knew I was a C average student. Over there, here, I was a straight A student. My GPA was something like 3.8 for a single year. It was crazy.
Yeah, very different standards overseas compared to here, but very different ways of, and again, this is the past. Nowadays, no, just like Frank said, medicate, just medicate, medicate. And then we wonder what happens when these kids go off the walls and lose it.
Well, isn't it funny how a country that's based in individual liberty can have so many generic prescriptions for the problems that face us?
Yeah.
They just think that one blanket covers everything, and it doesn't. Every symptom, every problem, every person is completely different than the next. You may have things that are that line up, that everything looks exactly the same, but you could have identical twins that have different problems.
Of course.
So what makes them think that Marshall's issues would be any way the same as mine? We're all individuals, and the problem is we've got a society that just looks as us. Jerry Seinfeld had a bit about how the pharmaceutical industries looked at us, and it's like, have you ever seen the commercial where they have like the silhouette of a person, standing sideways, and the pill goes in the mouth and it goes down to the belly? Well, that's how pharmaceutical companies look at us. They think that the same remedy is going to be the same for everybody, and it's not.
No.
And it's not. And until and unless we understand that, especially with kids today, that not every kid is going to respond to the same kind of treatments, the same kind of education, the same kind of teaching. You look at our educational systems, like, okay, why did kids in agricultural states have the same exact classes as kids on coastal states? When you have more or less a completely different environment, they have that federal layout of these are the classes you need to. Well, those classes don't teach to the demographic of where those kids live. It doesn't teach to their environment. It doesn't.
I actually had that very discussion this week with somebody.
Yeah, they don't tailor anything for where the kids are. It doesn't prepare them for where they are. And now you talk about like home ec. We don't even have home ec in the classes anymore. Oh well, home ec is that you're only catering to gender specific biases for having home ec because you think that that's a female centric thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. My father cooked more for me than my mother ever did. My brother is a gourmet chef. I do majority of the cooking here. Okay, there are certain things that you don't. It's not a matter of gender. It's a matter of preparedness. Kids today are not prepared to live in the world. If you take
right now,
look how many kids. I guarantee you, 90% of kids can't live in the jungle.
People households. Okay, so if you're pushing single family or single person households, doesn't it make sense to make sure that all those people can actually take care of themselves?
Not if you want them. Not if you want them dependent on government. If you want them to be
dependent
on
government, going to come in and fix all my meals.
Well, there will be a meal program.
They'll have them delivered to you.
You know, pre-prepared, government-sanctioned, government-prepared meals will be delivered to you in the form of a pill. You know,
not even a pill. You have them now. They're private companies like HelloFresh.
Oh yeah, but they'll shrink it down.
Eventually they will, but right now, I mean, even if you look at it now, let's look at a modern analog. You've got companies like HelloFresh. What was the other one? Frank's. Not you, Frank. You're not the meal, but I mean they've got these different meal groups now that are competing for your dollar. How long before the government says, "Hey, you know what? You can only include this much beef in that meal. The national recommended amount of chicken is this," and eventually it goes down to, "Well, you need to eat the bugs," and that's what's delivered at your home. That it's already happening. It's just the boiling pot, right? So
we already have Agenda 21 or whatever the hell that is, and the
Agenda 2030,
and all the rest of that crap. You know, keep taking independence away from the people is the best thing that a government seeking control can hope for. You know, when the government wants omnipresent control over everything, independence is the greatest threat. So eliminating anything that makes a kid independent now when they're young, you know, teaching them what not how to think, but what to think, you know, it all lends to that credence. We're batteries in the system. This is the matrix. That's their goal. That's their goal. But instead of robots being in charge, it's just a group of elites that they want control. They want the money. They want the power. We're just useless minions that mean anything. We're cogs in the machine, and any single one of us that breaks a tooth off that wheel are easily replaceable by some other cog to take it. Doesn't make sense.
Graham asks, what's one good argument against the dismantling of the Federal Department of Education?
Look at standards
that you come up with for not dismantling the Department of Education is standardization and compliance. Okay, that's the only argument that is supportive of the Federal Department of Education. And the thing is standardizing our school system is not efficient. It's not good. Recent studies have shown that 47% of all Americans never leave the state they were born in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Of those, 37% never leave their hometowns. People don't move around a lot. People generally stay where they were born and raised. Typically. Okay, so that being said, with that many people that are staying in the same places, education should conform to the region where people live. It shouldn't conform to some national standard. What somebody needs to thrive in an urban environment is completely different than what somebody needs to thrive in a rural environment.
Yeah. Although I would say that one thing that would benefit everyone is learning how money works.
Yeah, but to learn how money works, you have to have somebody who
are some core subjects.
Show how it works.
There are some very core subjects that need to be taught everywhere. But honestly, until the Department of Education came into existence, our states were handling it just fine.
Yeah.
Our communities was handling it just fine. It was when the United States Department of Education came into existence that our educational standards started dropping, where we started dropping on the world stage in our levels of education. Okay, in our intelligence across the world started dropping after the United States Department of Education started messing with a system that was the best in the world.
Yeah, and that's because they focus mostly on making sure that the kids could do basic foundational things like reading, writing, and arithmetic, basic math. And then when the child's interest took off and they wanted to learn more, that's where your tertiary educational systems come in, your universities, your colleges. So instead of just going to college and then you have a bunch of gen ed requirements in your first year, you already knew how to read, you already knew how to write, you already knew how to do math. Now you were there at that tertiary educational institution for your specialization, physics, chemistry, whatever advanced program that you wanted to go into that you would later maybe make into a career.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to split out of here. I got a couple of things I got to take care of, and one of them is my hip just actually popped out of the joint, and I have to go put my leg back in. No, it sounds painful.
Oh,
I
that's fun.
Ow.
I got a bad hip, and it hurts like hell. Well, listen, I'm going to catch you kids next weekend. You guys be safe and shoot straight. You do your wrap up. I'll be in the chat. You guys have a great weekend.
All right. Good night, Frank.
Good night, everybody.
Actually, I gotta get ready to go as well. I was just checking. I have a flight. I have to fly again. By the way,
to go get your bag,
hopefully
right?
not on Spirit.
No, definitely not Spirit. People do not use Spirit Airlines. Took them 10 days. 10 days to get a bag. On day one, when I returned, it was on the 15th, and that night they were like, "Oh, we know where your bag is. It's in South Carolina." 3 days, on day 3, I went in person, had to go in person because their online system is meant to piss you off and do nothing. I went in person in LaGuardia to Spirit Airlines, was recording them, and said, "Hey, where's my bag?" Took one guy 3 minutes, found my bag. It's in South Carolina. On day 10, that night at 11:30 at night, they dropped off my bag.
Yeah.
Okay. Never use Spirit Airlines. And they haven't apologized or offered anything. Nope, they don't care. But no, I'm flying out, doing a favor for someone. I have to it's a business favor. So I have to fly out. It's going to be on Delta. And I'm just trying to figure out the time for it. Oh my God, the cabs are crazy. It's crazy. I got to be there like 5 a.m. It's ridiculous. And they want to charge me an arm and a leg. I tell you, it's crazy.
5 a.m. at New York traffic.
Yeah.
There is no, traffic is very light at 5 a.m. You would think it would be cheaper. It's not.
Yeah. You're waking up somebody early to go take you to the plane.
Pretty much.
Oh, convenience charge.
Something. I don't know what they're doing. Rip off.
Yeah, have a safe flight, Mike.
Yeah.
Good try. Good try.
Don't get lost.
Time around, it's a lot better than last.
The good news, every time I've been flying, we land safe, which is good, and I do eventually get where I'm going, so that's good. It's just that all my gear and time frames are all wrong, but safe at
Now,
least.
you should have flown Southwest, who has a Windows 3.1 machine.
Yeah. We do all of our flight plans from a Commodore 64 in a warehouse.
Hey, as long as it doesn't crash. I've been on Russian airlines.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've flown with Aeroflot.
No.
Trust me, everything's an upgrade. Almost everything's an upgrade for that. Spirit's pretty much the same.
It's about the same as Bulgarian Airlines. That was a dog of a trip.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell you about that sometime. Boeing thinks it's got problems. It's got nothing on Bulgarian Airlines. Oh, jeez.
But that's me. So I gotta jump out of here. Got one or two things left to get that set up. But I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah,
we have.
And I want to thank everybody for the comments, and I want to thank John R for the super chats. Really helps a lot. But remember, folks, like and share. You don't have to do super chats. We love it.
No,
it helps
we do
pay
love
the bills. But super chats, not super chat, like and share, subscribe,
and subscribe.
Help us get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best thing anybody can do for us, is helping us get the word out. Because quite honestly, if we don't start getting people to understand what's really happening in this country, nothing's going to change. People are starting to see a glimmer of what's going on, but we need people to start coming together, start taking action.
Nothing is going to change positively anyway.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be, you're going to see change, but it's going to be for the negative, because the people that are enacting the change do not have your best interests at heart.
No, they don't.
No,
they honestly don't. Their end goal is to take more and more power away from you. We, the people, are the ones that are supposed to hold the keys to our government. Yet every time we turn around, we're finding more and more of those keys missing.
Yeah.
Okay. And we only have ourselves to blame. We allow this to happen. We allow this with our complacency. We allow this to happen. Plain and simple. And the only ones that can change us is us. You and me.
So don't let anybody tell you that your vote doesn't matter, because this year will definitely be the year of the independent and the central voter, because without you, neither side wins and everything descends into chaos. And that's not hyperbole. You're going to see it. You might even see it even if you do participate, but it won't be as bad as if you didn't do anything at all.
And that's very true. At the very minimum, everyone has a civic responsibility to register to vote and get out and vote, regardless of what candidate you support. Okay, and I don't care if you don't support any of them. Vote for Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, I don't give a shit. Cast a ballot.
Yeah.
I have a reason for who you're casting it for, but yes, cast a ballot.
And if you're voting for Mickey Mouse, that's going to show people that you do not approve. At the very least, it's going to show you do not agree with what's going on in this country.
Yep.
Maybe one year we should actually all vote Mickey Mouse in.
On average, every year, there's about 3% of people who do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what kind of, I'm saying, what kind of statement would it make to the major parties?
I think we need
that
Kilroy for
nobody
president.
gets voted in.
Shinzo Abe.
Kilroy.
They have a new trick about that. They don't, in a lot of states, count that as a invalid, and they don't report that number.
Yeah, because they aren't a registered candidate. Oh, by the way, who missed their registration deadline?
Yeah.
Yep, it goes back to that. The loop
Well,
is
guys,
very interesting.
we're going on 2.5 hours. I was outside a lot today, so I'm going to head out.
Yep.
Okay,
All
you
right.
have a great night, Jan. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, folks. We have literally seen this year 2 instances where our whole electoral process has been almost upended and upended in one case,
Yeah.
where the people don't have the choice anymore. And we are seeing that in the Democratic nominee for president,
Mhm.
or the presumed Democrat nominee for president, and the literally usurpation of the presidential candidacy by the DNC. And if we would have seen more tragic results with Donald Trump, we would have seen the same event occur with the Republican Party. We can't allow for this anymore. So start petitioning to end primaries in your states. Allow every candidate that wants to run, that is eligible to run for office. Sure, have a signature requirement. I don't care on that. But if they can get the support, if they want to run for office, allow them to run. Allow them all to be on the ballot. Not on a primary ballot, but on a general election ballot. Period.
In fact, if you want an example of legislation to do that, our own Michael Vasquez had written legislation that does just that. And it also is based on current law. So it's not even that outside of the realm of the realm of possibility to be able to do that and get that in your state. We, the people, can write our own legislation. We don't need a representative to do that.
And I'm actually getting ready to start writing some legislation here real soon on a few different things.
So if you want to see that legislation as sort of a template to see what it looks like and what could be for an election law, join L1FS. Join us. Join this group and come to the site, and it's there on the site. You can see the proposal for the election law. I believe it's up there on the site. It was last time I looked, a draft of that, right?
I believe it is.
So join us. $15 a year. As far as, a commitment goes, that's better than what you get with most subscription services to Netflix, which just donated $7 million to the Kamala Harris campaign, or the future campaign, as it were. So instead of paying for Netflix,
a little over $1 a month.
Yeah.
That's all. And mind you, this money doesn't go into our pockets.
Not at all.
This money helps us get the word out.
Yep.
Ours is a mission of education. That is our goal. That is our intent, is to educate the public about how our government is supposed to act.
Right.
According to a constitutional basis.
Yep.
We do not have that going on today.
No.
Only ones that can change it is us, by holding our government accountable.
And learning what our civics is supposed to be. Because we as citizens, to be a citizen is to be a participant in your own governance. That's how it works. Otherwise, you're not a citizen at all. You're a subject.
Yes, you are. And that's it. That is it. If you fail to participate in your own governance, you have subjugated yourself to the rule of the elite.
Yep.
Okay. So those people of you that say they don't get involved with politics, guess what? You're not
Doesn't
a citizen.
matter.
You're a subject.
Yep.
You have just subjugated yourself to the will of your government.
And you are the representative of the
That
greatest
is
minority.
the opposite of freedom.
You are the only representative for the greatest minority, and that's the individual. There is no other minority that is more than you. It doesn't matter if you're part of the Black community, if you're part of the Asian community, the Hispanic community. Those aren't minorities. The greatest minority in this country is the individual, and you are the only advocate for that. So if you want to have a piece of that, and you want to be involved in that, to advocate for the individual, liberty first principles, it's up to you to be that advocate. Nobody else can do that for you unless you join us. You join us and we can combine our voices together, and then suddenly we are a minority that advocates for the individual, which is the greatest minority in the country, in the world. And that really makes you part of a community. And what better community to be a part of as an American than one that brings up the Constitution and really shows us as individuals and empowers us to be able to move forward in our own governance as citizens, not subjects.
Exactly. Okay, because as I've said many times, you cannot have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, if the people refuse to be involved.
Yep.
It is absolutely impossible. So it's time to get involved. Get involved in your own governance. Get involved in holding our elected officials accountable. That's the only way we can change it.
Yep.
Is through us, the people. We, the people. We're here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Please invite your friends, invite your relatives, invite everyone you know to join us on our live stream or to watch the event when we're not live. Anyway, just help us get the word out, because we are here to educate. We are here to show you how government is supposed to operate, not how it is operating. We
Right.
point out the glaring contrast between a constitutional government and the government we have now. We'll see you all next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.